Welcome back.
We are back. I feel like the elephant in the room we didn't talk about is the fact that I had a beard and now I don't have a beard. And honestly, I really was attached to the beard. I grew it myself. I felt like we really bonded. But a number of you wrote in and said, Shane is amazing, but what's up with Levi's beard? And so I guess I caved to the peer pressure.
That's not true. Okay, so section 3 of Masterclass 2 is automated communication. So I'm going to talk through the notes that I use. Some of them I'll just reference. I won't really talk to, but I'm going to talk through the reservation information note that we send at the beginning, because that is, I feel like, a masterpiece.
That document is.
That we've worked on
right.
for 5 years, and literally 2 weeks ago started adding a new section in because we realized we needed it. And it's just, yeah, I think it'll be really helpful to you. So, first reminder is respond immediately to any inquiry. If you've got the pre-approve or decline thing, that you've got to get on that ASAP.
That stops the timer. There's actually a timer running from the second a guest sends an inquiry to the second that you either pre-approve or decline. And if you respond to them and don't hit pre-approve, the clock doesn't stop.
Right.
The clock stops when you hit pre-approve. And we talked in the last segment about, in session 1, about SEO. And I will just reiterate, try not to ever decline anybody. If they ask if they can bring their pet buffalo, pre-approve, reply and say, unfortunately, no, pets are not allowed according to our house rules. But if you'd like to come without the buffalo, we'd love to have you. Can we bring 12 people? We only accommodate 3 people. If you'd like to come with 3 people, we'd love to have you.
Yeah.
Always, if you can, always pre-approve, because that keeps you higher in the rankings. If you decline, it pushes you lower.
And then after that, after you've pre-approved, and probably not declined, after that, it doesn't matter. Like, I know Airbnb's sending the new thing, like, this inquiry has expired. And they're doing that thing now where they show someone's expired because they didn't respond within 24 hours. That doesn't mean anything, as far as I know. They're just trying to get people to make a move. Like, they're doing it on the other side, too, to
right.
that person. They're saying, your inquiry has expired. They just want you to either book or not book. But they can, even though it's expired, they can still book if it's available.
Right.
So that's not a worry. You just need to do the pre-approve or decline thing. Okay, so after that, my system is, once I get a reservation, and for me, we usually don't get pre-approve or declines because ours are instant book, which we talked about earlier. We just get instant books most of the time, and they send me an initial note. And we also talked about that already, about like the kind of the length of it, but normally most, 95% is just a basic note like, hey, we're so-and-so and so-so coming to town for this, can't wait to take your space. And I, as quickly as I can, send my welcome note, is what I call it. And it's just a very quick blurb saying, great, can't wait to have you. I'm trying to think of exactly what it says, because those things are all thought out. It says, can't wait to have you, and then it says something like, we'll send all of your information for your trip a couple days before your arrival, and then I say check-in time is whatever check-in time is, and the key's in a lockbox, so getting in is a cinch. Signed, LNS. And the reason I mentioned those things is because that's the number one question, is like, how do we get in the house? When can we check in? Like, so you just covered both of them by saying, this is when check-in is, and we're going to send you your information, don't worry. And the key's in a lockbox, so getting in is a cinch. And it just kind of like relieves anyone's fears that get stressed about when they can check in. Now, sometimes people from there will want an early check-in or early check-out. And I have, for myself, some notes saved on Airbnb's template, which you guys probably know about. They have a new thing now. I used to just keep it in my notes in my phone. Right. And I also had shortcuts on my phone, which if you don't know what that is, we can explain that to you. Where
keyboard shortcuts where you write down like 4 letters, like PPDT, which expands to
this whole paragraph. And mine were, I didn't do weird things like that. Like mine were, I wrote the word welcome note as one word. That was my like signal word.
Right.
And when I wrote the word welcome note, my whole welcome note would pop up to that person. That was my shortcut. But now Airbnb is kind of, again, like anything, they're trying to make it so there's no third party needed for anything. They want everything to be in-house in their app. So they've got that notebook icon that you click on, and you can put in your notes for people. So that's first I send my welcome note right after they make the reservation. Then a few days before their arrival, as promised, I send them their reservation information note, which I'm just calling it that for now. It is more like a welcome note, but I called the other one the welcome note. And that's the one that I'm going to talk through with you now. They're just the main points that we think that you should hit. We rarely have any other questions or any issues with check-in or check-out or lockbox or anything, because we just cover it all in this note, and we're going to send you the template for it, obviously taking out our details. The other change that we made is we used to just have, because I was an English teacher, he's also a writer, but like it was just paragraph form. I had this big long thing and I thought it was great and helpful and super informative, and then we were realizing there were some gaps and people were still asking questions that were in the note, and he said you need to make it bullet point. So we changed it and to in all caps and not the yelling caps. It's different. It's just like the
title case.
Yeah. The first one says check in and has the time, and then I have a little paragraph underneath it with the address, and I say please let us know your ETA so we can schedule cleaning accordingly. And the reason I say that is, one, I've already let them know check-in is 3 o'clock, but let us know your ETA, because if your ETA is 10 p.m. and we have 3 other spaces to clean, we'll put this clean last on the list. And we don't explain all that to them. I hardly ever tell people that we have multiple spaces unless we like meet them in the middle of cleaning another space and they're coming out and we're like, hey, and like, what are you doing? And we're like, we have the space. But I'm not trying to put that on people, like we have all these spaces and we have no time to clean. But that wording there has helped us, so people will often say, one, they might want an early check-in, which you can deal with that how you want to deal with that. I have a note saved and I can share that with you on it. But if they say they're coming late, then it helps me schedule. My next section is parking, and that's just an explanation of where to park, where not to park, because that's the first thing that they're going to need to know when they get there.
This kind of walks them through the process of getting to the space, getting in, getting comfortable, getting...
Yep.
It's
all the way,
very
kind of, yeah,
structured.
chronologically. Next is called getting in. Did I just say that? And that is kind of like explaining, now you're there, walk up to the door. This is where the lockbox is. This is where the spare keys are when you get inside, explaining all that. Then the next one is called comfort, and that just goes through like where the thermostat is, and they can change that. Any other details, like one of our spaces, the front porch is a shared space, so I'm explaining that, telling them little details that we've learned that people ask about. And again, we'll share that with you. You can look at it. And also mentioning that we have bulletin boards in all of our spaces where there are extra notes for them to look at. And the Wi-Fi is also listed on the bulletin board. We list it here in the note, but we also put it on the bulletin board because people need it everywhere, and they just want to know the Wi-Fi. Right. And then we also mention, we keep like menus from nearby restaurants on the bulletin board. Sometimes, lots of times, guests will write a sweet note or like an encouragement for the next guest, like, you guys have got to try this place down the street, and they'll stick that on the bulletin board. And so the bulletin board's like our little community space where there's information, helpful, and recommendations. We also mentioned in the note that we have no cable television, in case they didn't see that on the listing.
Right. Now, so this is something she's talking you through now. You're gonna have access to these full templates.
Yeah. But
and you'll change them to suit your space, but each section, each category fills in a necessary information gap.
Yeah, and is it okay? I kind of want to talk about a few the details why I'm saying it, because I've found that it needs to be said, because if not, they're going to have 14 questions about it.
That's fine, but just at the end, I'm going to explain how to clean a bathroom.
Okay, so that's the end of comfort, and then after the comfort, we have the Wi-Fi here, the network and the password. And then this is our newest section. We have a section called Extra Guests, and we came up with this, but we also got it a little bit from a space that we stayed in that was very like hotel-y. It was like a really nice apartment building, and most people owned their apartments, and a couple of them are Airbnbs. And they had this very, explicit section on, if you have extra guests, we can ask you to leave immediately because you're
in breach of our house rules.
Of our contract. And then, but if we don't find out until after you leave, i.e. there are 3 beds used and only 2 guests booked, then we're going to charge you for the extra guest per night of your stay via the Resolution Center. Again, not saying it meanly, just saying it professionally, just so they know
Very direct.
to expect this. And also that they know that we're not idiots and like, you know, because sometimes some people, again, 95% all good. Sometimes a few people want to pull the wool and, you know, like
take advantage, game the system.
Bring 14 people in to sleep in your 4 beds. And we're around, but we're not around enough to see the people coming and going. Our next section is called the checkout procedure. We went back and forth on whether or not to have this. I didn't have it. And then there were just enough times where people left us a sink full of dishes. And we just don't think that should be included in the cleaning because we're cleaning all the linens, cleaning the bathroom, making the beds, cleaning the floors. Dishes feels like a...
You're just taking advantage now, all right?
Yeah. Like, so we added a couple things about the checkout procedure that we would like you to do your dishes, but also we don't need you to strip your beds. We don't need you to do anything else except for your dishes. If your trash really stinks or is leaking, sure, take it out. But other than that, you're good to go. And we tell them where to leave the keys when they leave and when checkout is. And if you leave before then, let us know. Again, so we can schedule cleaning as early as possible. So we've got it on the front end, on the back end. So we know. And sometimes people will not say. They will just be like...
I'd say maybe half don't tell us.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't tell us. And so we assume, you know, they'll get there at 3, they'll leave at 11, and that's fine. But if they do let us know, it can be helpful for our cleaning. Next section is damage, which, again, they're going to get in and see the damage form. But here it just says if you leave stains, damage of any kind, or an unusual mess, we'll send you an extra charge via Airbnb's Resolution Center to pay for your replacements, extra cleanup, or repair. It's easy and pretty straightforward.
Now that took no emotion. There was no spite. Originally I included some language that said if something gets broken, it's no big deal.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say.
And she was like, "Babe, we should take that out because it kind of is a big deal. Like it's not good."
Well, yeah, it's not a big deal, but saying that is pointless to say that to them.
Right.
It gave off a vibe of like, whatever.
Yeah, break it. You know, throw the champagne.
So we just took that out and left it still straightforward, but I feel like ending it with it's easy and pretty straightforward is our way of saying it's not a big deal without sounding completely careless.
And it takes the emotion out of it, and it says, if this, then that. It's perfectly reasonable. Now you're here. We're going to just reiterate that if something's broken or damaged or stained, you're going to get an invoice to replace it. No problem. And
then our next and final heading says anything else, ? And we just say, please let us know if you have any questions or need anything. We're never far away, and we're here to help. We hope you enjoy your stay. Signed, us. So they get that a couple days before arrival. And usually, after that email is sent, they'll write back and say, great, thanks so much for all that information. That was so helpful. We plan to arrive at this time. A lot of times they do that.
Yeah, it's true.
Or if they don't tell us the time, they say, thank you so much. That was really helpful. And then again, occasionally I have to deal with it early check-in or early check-out. And I'm pretty good with scheduling. So it's just not hard for me to let them know, you know, if they can or can't. And if they can't, if someone wants to come early but someone's checking out, we always offer you're welcome to drop your bags at 11 when this guest, before you checks out, just drop your bags and go on with your day. And then check-in is at 3 o'clock, you know. So like the pressure's off of me. I don't have to have it cleaned by 12 just because their bags are there, but they were able to drop their bags and go on with their day.
Also, just another brief sidebar, you're going to have to make the decision, do I want to charge extra for an early check-in or a late check-out? And I would encourage you, as much as it's possible to do it, don't charge. Don't charge for that. Let that be a courtesy, an extra benefit, a bonus that you offer your guests. If they're asking for a checkout time that's going to be later into the evening, that's going to prevent another guest from booking and checking in, then you need to talk about tacking on an additional night because no one can check in. The way we usually handle those, you referenced that before, is we have an idea of when the next guest is going to be checking in, or there's not a next guest. If there's not a next guest, then typically we'll tell them no one is booked the night that you check out, so you're welcome to leave as late as you want. But if someone does book, we'll let you know, and you'll have to be out by 11 or thereafter. So part of that is just maintaining open communication, honesty with your guest. If they're asking, I heard somebody talking about a guest who wanted to check in around 2 or 3 in the morning because that's when their flight landed. Well, yeah, that's that's still yesterday.
Right.
That's still last night.
Yeah, if it means someone couldn't stay there and check out, then you have to pay for that night.
Then you pay for that night. That's not an early check-in or a late check-out. And it's okay to just tell someone, well, that's not a late checkout. That's an additional day, because that prevents someone from staying that night. But all that's handled on a case-by-case basis. But just so long as you have kind of an idea in your mind of this is how we handle that.
Right. And I will say, early check-ins and late checkouts can be overwhelming, especially with 5 spaces, because, I don't know percentages, I would just be guessing, but, a few people ask for them. And then some on
15,
the same...
15%?
Maybe. And on the same day, someone's asking for a late checkout and someone's asking for an early check-in. So it can be a lot of things. So I would, as with all of our things that we're sharing with you, I would have, like he said, a way that you handle it and just have a standard note. My standard note says, as of now, we can include this for you. Something like, as of now, no one is checking in after you, if no one's checking in after them. So you're welcome to stay until this time and la-di-da-di-da-di-da. And I just send that to them. And if there is someone checking in after them, I have a note for that as well. So it's just kind of like, this is what I do, this is how it works. And you don't have to be racking your brain all the time.
Right.
Like, when do I have to clean the space and when do they have to get out?
So much of being an Airbnb host is this sense of like freedom, and you get to make all the decisions, and you get to pick what kind of beds, and you get to decide what even is an Airbnb space. Is it you get this pillow on my couch, you may sit on it, or is it an entire house? A lot of flexibility. But with that flexibility comes the ambiguity of just being uncertain of how you should resolve a situation. So we've done it enough times that we've kind of distilled everything down into this kind of codified policy of, well, our policy is as follows. And it really helps a guest on the other end to know, oh, I'm asking a normal question they get regularly. This is how if they handle it, I'm in good hands.
Yep.
So they feel more confident because you know what you're talking about.
Yes. All right. And then our average stay is 2 nights. So the day after they arrive, it's their second day of their stay. They leave on the 3rd day. I
think it's actually 2.6.
Okay. I send a check-in note. And again, all these notes are confusing because check-in sounds like you're checking in. But I'm checking in on them to like make sure they're okay.
Oh, a check-on note.
Oh yeah. And I ask people there, again, the wording is really important there because we've had issues with people just a couple times. But I say, hey, just checking in to make sure, and I say the name of the space. Just want to check in and see that everything is satisfactory with the name of the space. And also... Oh, that's not the...
Oh, that's the wrong note. I'm sorry. I led you astray.
Sorry.
That was one that was modified. I was trying to help her out by giving her one of her notes.
So I can remember it, probably. It says, hey, name, just checking in to see that blank is satisfactory, the name of the place is satisfactory, and that you have everything you need, period. Let us know, ! Our names. So now I've asked if the space is satisfactory. That's one question. And that if they have everything that they need. That's the second question. And then I say, let us know. And literally, it is almost completely fail-safe, or if that's the right word, that people respond. Like when you say, let us know with an exclamation point, they let you know. And, again, 9 times out of 10, it is, everything's great, thanks so much for checking in. That's like the normal thing. Every once in a while, someone will have a concern and say, oh, we can't, the Wi-Fi's not working so good. And then we can address that with them right then. And we don't have to worry about that being a thing afterwards. The other thing is, if we check in and someone says, oh, it's great, thanks. And then they leave and we have a debacle like we did, and we've already told you in a webinar, with the folks at New Year's Eve.
The New Year's Eve nightmare guests.
And we use this with Airbnb. I had on Airbnb's system, through their app, I had the communication with these folks that said, hey, how's everything going? Mid-stay. And they said, everything's great, thanks. And then when they left, they brought, they had this whole other story, which was that everything wasn't okay. And they were just devastated. And so we had this... And not that it made it all go away. Like, see, you said everything was fine, so there. But it did help that we had a record that they had said everything was okay, and we had asked, and they didn't say anything. So part of it is to give your guests a good stay and because you care about them. And part of it is to cover yourself. Because like I said, if sometimes people are out to take advantage of you or to get a free stay, which is what those people were trying to do. So I do the check-in. If it's a longer stay, if someone's saying, I don't know, 7 days or something, I'll wait a couple days usually and send it more towards the middle of the stay. But you still want to do it on the earlier end just to make sure. Like,
right.
Hey, did you get in okay? Is everything okay? Are you finding the space satisfactory? Do you need anything? Let us know. Right.
So that communicates to them a willingness for us to hear any complaints, and we're asking them, and it diffuses those things that would have ended up on a review, and would have ended up just partly hurting our feelings, hurting our star ratings, hurting our relationship with them. But instead, it's an opportunity for us to serve them better and say, is there anything that needs addressed? Is everything satisfactory? Please let us know.
Yeah.
And it's actually been super helpful.
Yeah, and then that, along with, we mentioned before, the suggestion box in each of the spaces. So again, it's kind of like we're trying to attack these things that could be issues on two fronts, right, both times. So by sending the check-in note and seeing how they're doing, plus having a box that has where they can write a suggestion down for you, that's two ways that you've de-escalated any issues that they're having, and they get to tell you before they sit down and are angry and write a review. So for me, that's the end of my automated communication. I don't do an after stay message to people, and I don't ask them to leave reviews. I know there's been some discussion about that, and people are kind of into that, and if you are, that's fine. Let you do you. We don't do that. We don't find it necessary, even though I would say only 20% of people leave reviews. That's my estimate. But it doesn't matter at this point for us, and it's okay. Like, you'll get to a point where you've got, 50 reviews under your belt, and you're fine. It doesn't matter. If you have one space, 50 reviews is great. Right. You don't need 700 reviews, So that's the end of my automated communication. Oh, the other thing I do have is I have some other random saved notes with the most asked questions that people ask. And so a lot of times they're recommendations. People ask for in our area, recommendations for good food, because we have a lot of good food, and lots of different neighborhoods, and also about music venues to go to. Right. So I have some saved notes, just, again, they would be specific for my area. Like, here are my recommendations for food in this neighborhood, and that's a note. And here's for this neighborhood, and here's downtown food, and here's music venues. And so when someone says, they send in, what are your recommendations for downtown food? I've got the note, I send it.
Now, I might get tarred and feathered for this recommendation, and this is just one man's opinion, but we've stayed in dozens and dozens of other Airbnb spaces, and plenty of hotels as well, and every now and then you come across one that they have really, really put a lot into the welcome note. It's like a 3-ring binder yeah, with laminated sheets and pages and pages and pages, and it's a novel thing. I want to take any pressure off you might be feeling. You do not need to create that. You do not need to provide a 3-ring binder with every restaurant recommendation and your favorite this and your favorite that. You are welcome to, and it's not bad.
Right.
When it gets bad is when you created that binder a year ago, and now the key situation in the main door is different, and the restaurant is closed or moved, and the parking situation has changed, and we stayed at a place that had that happen, and so we had been under the impression that this is how parking worked, and then we parked and we got charged like $15, and I was like, what's up with that? And we talked to the host, which actually was one of the hosts that manages like hundreds of places, and they said that's it said it here, it didn't say it there. I understand. We'll split that with you, and it just wasn't worth $750 to. We just like we'll pay for our parking. It's just you confused us.
We circled it in the book because theirs was like a printed book.
Right.
Or we circled it here, and they're like, that is not actual information. So that's a good point. We don't do binders in any of our spaces, but here's the thing. Partially because of the way the world is going, most people have smartphones, laptops. They've researched things, and they know where they want to go and what they want to do.
They know how Yelp works.
If they don't, they'll ask you, but they'll probably ask you the same things over and over. So instead of writing about your favorite restaurant all the time, just have your note saved. That's my suggestion. The other thing that's happened in all of our spaces, without fail, and it's kind of funny, is people collect, when they go out, they collect the flyers from this distillery they went to, and this
bus
winery,
map, and
the bus map, and the magazines that have all the stuff in it. And so we have big piles of information for people to look at that we didn't put there, that all of our guests put there. And that's the things that other tourists are going to want to see because it was picked up by a tourist, you know? So
when you first launch a space, it's great to go to the Chamber of Commerce and grab some things, grab some flyers. If you go to the interstate, what do you call it, rest area at the interstate, those flyers are there. And so if you go to your nearest interstate rest area, you can just grab one of everything. You can create that little pile. But again, don't let it overwhelm you that you have to like do a book report on your town, because most guests know why they're coming. They know what they're coming to see. They know what they want to do, and they know how to access Yelp and Google reviews. If there is some like hidden gem that doesn't show up in those places, like the diviest dive bar or like the best backwoods trail that it's not in all the things, then by all means have that ready to share. Like, here's something, that sort of insider trading knowledge that they couldn't get.
Yeah,
is
we
great.
We have our go-to spaces for that too.
Right.
And actually, we don't normally do that in a note. That's when we see someone and we're like, hey, and he always mentions the same bar because it's fun, super local divey bar that is interesting.
And they probably wouldn't have heard of it.
Yep.
Yeah. So, all right. I think that's it for session 3 of Masterclass 2. And again, we're Levi and Shayna, Airbnb My Space. Thank you so much for joining us on this adventure.
Yes. Email us, Facebook us, any questions, thoughts, feedback. We really want to hear from you.
Follow us on Instagram. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
She's making that happen.
Thank you guys.
We're out. Is your voice okay? You sound like you're getting a little coffee.
Fine.
Good.
Okay.
There are like no funny bloopers in that one at all.
I know.
A lot of vocal fry. A lot of vocal fry.